You cannot change anything until you accept it. You stand at the edge of a road that twists into the unknown. On one side lies the life you know, familiar, safe, predictable. On the other, a shining path of success, glittering like a distant city at night. You want to run toward it. You long for it, but every step forward feels like stepping into a mirror that reflects someone you do not yet recognize. The ambition pulls at you, electric and insistent, but a deeper part of you recoils. You are terrified of who you might become, the version of yourself who conquers, who demands, who cuts loose from old ties. It is foreign, and yet it is necessary. You feel the tension coiling in your chest, tightening like a storm you cannot outrun. Every heartbeat echoes the silent question, can I survive this transformation without losing myself? Fear is not always loud. Often it whispers. It lurks in your chest. In the quiet moments, when no one is watching, you tell yourself you want growth, you want power, you want influence, but beneath it all is the tremor of uncertainty. This is the silent fear that achieving your deepest desires may require shedding parts of yourself you hold dear. Friends who never believed in you, comfort that has become a soft cage. Even your own sense of morality or patience may need to bend. You have glimpsed people who have reached the top, and in their eyes you see both triumph and solitude. The thought gnaws at you, will my success make me someone unrecognizable, someone isolated, someone hardened? And yet the spark of ambition flickers, refusing to be snuffed. Carl Jung once said, one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. Every dream of success is a mirror. It reflects not only your aspirations, but your shadow, the ambitions, the ruthlessness, the detachment you have hidden, denied, or ignored. You realize that every promotion, every achievement, every recognition will demand a part of yourself you have not yet faced. The dream unmasks the shadow. You see the person willing to cut ties with old comforts, the version of you who can act decisively, even coldly. You sense the tension, desire, and dread intertwined. To move forward is to confront the inner darkness, to see in yourself traits you have never acknowledged and perhaps feared. The mirror is merciless, yet necessary. Without it, you will remain a spectator of your own life, watching others step into the power you crave. And then comes the question that pierces deeper than any fear: what will it cost? Success is not only about wealth, influence, or acclaim. It exacts payment in solitude, in lost innocence, in the quiet surrender of who you once were. Friends may drift, comforts may vanish. The warmth of ordinary life can feel cold when ambition drives you. You sense the weight of the unknown self, sharp, demanding, transformative. There is a paradox at the heart of every dream. To gain the world, you may have to risk losing the world you once loved. Yet the alternative is stagnation, a slow decay of potential, a quiet death of unrealized possibility. The mind races with questions, yet the pulse of desire cannot be ignored. You must ask yourself, am I willing to pay the price? Will I embrace the person I need to become? No matter how strange or frightening, there is a tension that cannot be softened. It coils like a serpent, ready to strike at hesitation, at doubt. The silent fear, the mirror of the self, the hidden cost, they converge here in this moment of decision. Your life, as it has been, whispers goodbye. The path ahead calls with both light and shadow. And in this quiet storm, you feel the truth. Transformation is never gentle. It is never safe. It is terrifying. But within the terror lies awakening. You are ready for the self you fear most. People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own souls. You have built walls around yourself, Not walls of stone, but walls of routines, habits, and relationships that whisper, "You are safe here." You wake up, follow the same steps, scroll the same feeds, nod at the same conversations. Your calendar is full, your nights are predictable, and yet, beneath it all, there is a quiet restlessness. Carl Jung said, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely." And there it is, the silent truth. Your comfort is a cage. It promises safety, but it also holds you prisoner. You have chosen the familiar over the unknown, the known pain over the possibility of transformation. Even toxic relationships become chains you cling to, because leaving them would mean stepping into the unfamiliar. Friends who undermine you, jobs that drain you, rituals that numb you. They feel safe because they are predictable, but their security is a subtle poison, a slow erasure of who you could become. You feel the tightness in your chest, the creeping anxiety beneath the surface, but still, the walls feel easier to maintain than the void beyond. The comfort you seek is a mirage, and yet you continue to feed it, thinking safety is life. And then there is love, or what you think is love. You chase attention, validation, the warm glow of approval. You become addicted to the reflections of yourself in others' eyes. The more you seek it, the less real it feels. It is a mirage, a reflection in still water that moves when you reach for it, always just out of grasp. You settle for affection that masks fear. You tolerate dependency that quiets the voice of your own shadow. Carl Jung taught that relationships are mirrors of the self. The truth is harsh. Many of the people you call loved ones are only echoes of your own desire to avoid confrontation with yourself. You cling to this illusion because it is familiar, because it dulls the ache of unacknowledged ambition and latent fear. You smile, you laugh, you appear connected, yet a hollow emptiness lingers. You know deep down that the validation you crave can never fill the void. Then, inevitably, the cracks appear. The routines break down. The job becomes unbearable. The person you depend on falters or leaves. The walls you've built tremble. Nights feel longer, the silence heavier, and your own reflection in the mirror no longer comforts. The illusion fractures in slow, merciless waves. You feel exposed, trembling before a self you have denied. The very structures that promised security now threaten collapse, and the fear you've avoided erupts. Suspense builds inside you, a storm of doubt, longing and restlessness. Your mind races with questions. Who am I without these crutches? What if the life I built was never truly mine? The mirage of love, the cage of comfort, they shatter not all at once, but in pieces, each fragment revealing the hidden self behind the mask. And yet, within the panic, there is a subtle awakening. The walls crumble, the illusions dissolve, and the silence whispers a truth you can no longer ignore. Growth demands confrontation. To embrace your future, you must first abandon the security of the familiar. It is terrifying, but it is necessary. The old patterns, the false comforts, the hollow affections, they cannot follow you into the life you are meant to claim. Only by stepping into the emptiness, by facing the shadow within, can you truly rise. The mirage vanishes, revealing the solid ground of your own potential. The cage opens, not with force, but by choice. And in that choice lies freedom. You are stronger than the illusions that bind you. The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. You think you are in control. You make plans, set goals, chase opportunities, yet beneath the surface, another presence quietly shapes your path. Carl Jung called it the shadow, the unseen part of yourself that harbors fear, shame, and unacknowledged desires. It is subtle, almost invisible, like a whisper in a crowded room, yet it steers your choices with precision. Every hesitation, every irrational decision, every moment you sabotage your own potential is not always conscious. The shadow is an unseen puppeteer, pulling strings you cannot see, steering you toward safety, toward familiarity, toward repetition. You notice patterns. You avoid risk when opportunity knocks. You settle for mediocrity when greatness is within reach. You push people away before they leave. These are not random mistakes. They are echoes of unhealed wounds, guiding your behavior in ways you cannot name. The fear of abandonment, the lingering shame from childhood, the quiet voice whispering you are not enough. They live in your shadow, invisible but potent, shaping your life with relentless accuracy. And all the while, you believe you are acting freely. These hidden forces manifest in patterns that repeat themselves like a cruel echo. Perhaps it is the failed relationship you feared would end before it began, or the job you left before it could elevate you, or the opportunity you dismissed because it demanded courage you thought you didn't have. Every wound carves its own path, a blueprint for self-sabotage. You see people succeed in ways you once dreamed of, and yet, when the same chance arrives for you, your shadow steps in. It reminds you of old fears, whispers old lies, nudges you toward the familiar, toward the mediocre. You settle for less. You compromise, rationalize, distract yourself. A friend climbing the ladder of success excites you, yet you feel a strange relief when their triumph reminds you that taking the leap yourself might fail. The repetition is relentless. The wounds choose for you, long before you have a chance to decide consciously. You feel trapped, frustrated, caught in invisible chains. Every misstep, every delay, every hesitated choice is both punishment and protection, a cruel duality scripted by your own psyche. And then inevitably comes the moment of clarity. You sit alone, exhausted, staring at the patterns of your life laid bare. You see the same mistakes, the same fears, the same self-imposed limits repeating like shadows cast by a single flame. It is painful, unbearable even, to confront the fact that you have been guided, not by circumstance, not by luck, but by the unacknowledged parts of yourself. You realize that the comfort you cling to, the routines you maintain, the relationships you tolerate, they are all shaped by these hidden forces. And in that realization, a storm rises inside: grief, anger, fear, and an undeniable urgency to change. The shadow does not vanish with insight, but understanding it is the first step toward liberation. For the first time, you recognize that your failures, your hesitations, your inner resistance are not accidents. They are messages from a wounded self, demanding to be seen, integrated, and healed. The awareness is painful, yes, but it is also powerful. In this moment, you stand at the edge of transformation, seeing for the first time the invisible currents that have guided your life. You are not controlled by what you fear, but by what you refuse to see. Who looks outside dreams. Who looks inside awakes. Everything you have built feels like it is crumbling. The routines that once gave comfort now feel hollow. The relationships that promised warmth now echo with silence. Even your reflection in the mirror seems unfamiliar, distorted, as if the person staring back at you is a stranger wearing your face. Carl Jung said, "The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. Your life is transforming, whether you consent or not. The old self, the one who played it safe, who followed rules, who measured worth by approval, is shattering. Every certainty fractures under pressure. The job that once defined you now feels meaningless. Friends drift away, revealing fractures in connection you never noticed. Even your own thoughts turn against you, relentless and sharp, whispering doubts you never dared name. You feel unmoored, a vessel in stormy seas with no anchor, no compass, no map. The collapse is visceral. Your chest tightens, your mind races, your hands tremble. It is as if the life you knew is burning, and you are forced to watch, helpless, as the ashes scatter. And then comes the abyss. You stand before it, trembling, staring into the dark unknown of yourself. Who are you beneath the roles, beneath the routines, beneath the illusions? You feel panic rise, fragmented thoughts crashing in waves. I don't recognize myself. I'm lost. I'm unworthy. I can't survive this. Each breath feels heavy, each heartbeat echoing the chaos inside. The shadow of who you truly are stares back, unflinching, demanding to be seen. There is no comfort here, no familiar script to follow. The mind wants escape, but escape is impossible. The abyss does not threaten death. It threatens familiarity, identity, certainty. And yet, in the terror, there is a raw, electric clarity. The collapse is not punishment, it is revelation. The unknown self, terrifying though it is, waits to be acknowledged. The storm inside you mirrors the storm in your life. Chaos is both destroyer and teacher, and through the wreckage, grief rises. Not for what you have lost outside, friends, routines, stability, but for who you thought you were. The identity you clung to, built on comfort, approval, and avoidance, is gone. You mourn the old self as one would a lost home or a beloved companion. There is sorrow in realizing that safety was never real, that your life before was an intricate mask hiding untamed potential. Every memory, every habit, every familiar smile now feels like a shadow you can no longer touch. Yet grief is also the doorway to truth. The echo of loss reverberates with lessons. Who you were is not who you must become. And yet, without honoring what is gone, transformation cannot root. Pain becomes a teacher. Absence becomes space. The collapse, chaotic and unrelenting, carves the contours of the self you are yet to meet. It strips away illusions, leaving only raw, unshielded possibility. And in that exposure, there is both fear and awakening. You are not broken, you are becoming whole. Nothing has a stronger influence psychologically on their environment, and especially on their children, than the unlived life of the parent. You thought it was love. You thought it was care. You believed in the warmth, the attention, the presence that filled moments with temporary comfort. But now, looking back, you begin to see the cracks. The smiles were uneven. The words of encouragement were conditional. The embraces were fleeting. Carl Jung reminded us that we cannot change anything unless we accept it. What you once called love was often a reflection, a mirror held up to your needs, desires, and fears. People were not fully giving themselves. They were responding to your projected longing, your silent cries for validation. And you accepted it because it felt like a connection. You mistook reflection for reality. Friends, partners, even mentors, many were answering not your soul but the image of yourself you presented to them. The pain you carried was real, yes, but it was compounded by illusion. The realization is not bitterness, it is clarity. The love you received was never entirely theirs to give. It was your own projection, a placeholder for what you did not yet have within yourself. This illusion shaped more than memories, it shaped your choices. You resisted growth, delayed ambition, and clung to familiar patterns, because stepping forward meant abandoning what you thought was love. Promotions were intimidating because they might separate you from people whose approval had become a lifeline. Opportunities felt threatening because success could expose the emptiness in relationships you relied upon. You feared rejection, and yet you craved validation. The mind binds itself to familiar attachments, even when they limit potential. You realize now that many of your compromises, your hesitations, your quiet self-sabotages were rooted not in lack of skill or courage, but in unconscious loyalty to illusions. The mirage of love restrained you, whispering that security lay in attachment, that comfort lay in dependency. The truth is harder. Growth requires release. Freedom requires acknowledgement that the bonds you mourned may never have been real. And the paradox emerges. Letting go of illusion is the first step toward genuine connection, both with others and with yourself. And in that release, liberation begins. Seeing clearly removes the fog of guilt and fear. You understand that disappointment was never betrayal, it was revelation. The emptiness left by what never truly existed is a space to reclaim your power, to step into your shadow, to meet the parts of yourself you avoided. You can pursue ambition without apology, make choices without hesitation, and seek relationships rooted in truth rather than projection. The reframing is subtle yet seismic. The world has not failed you, your perception has simply evolved. This clarity does not erase pain, but it transforms it. The grief for what you believed in becomes gratitude for awakening. The illusions shatter, and you feel the first pulse of autonomy, the first whisper of authentic love. Love you create, love you recognize, love you inhabit. What once chained you now frees you. The past, once heavy with misperception, becomes a teacher rather than a burden, and in that truth you find courage to step forward, ready for the self you were always meant to meet. You are free when the illusions fall away. He who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakes. You have faced the abyss. You have watched the illusions crumble and the shadows rise. And now, the path forward is not outside, it is within. Carl Jung taught that one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. This is the first step. Integration begins. You begin by noticing the parts of yourself you once denied. The anger that flares in unfair situations, the envy that creeps when others succeed, the ambition that scares you with its intensity, the fear that keeps you small. You do not judge these feelings, you do not suppress them. You simply see them. The moment you acknowledge their presence, their power diminishes. Rage is no longer a hidden detonator. Envy becomes a compass, showing where desire waits to be claimed. Ambition, once feared, becomes fuel. Fear transforms into a signal guiding you toward growth. Integration is not about perfection, it is about recognition. You practice naming the shadows, sitting with them as you would a wounded animal. You do not attack. You do not run. You observe. And in this observation, a subtle shift occurs. Empowerment begins, not with conquering the shadow, but with meeting it openly. From recognition emerges dialogue. You speak to the shadow as if it were a trusted guide. You ask, "Why do you stir when I hesitate? What are you protecting me from?" You imagine conversations, debates, reflections in mirrors, writing letters to yourself, or even sitting quietly and listening to your internal voice. The shadow, once a faceless threat, becomes tangible. You begin to understand its language. Anger warns of boundaries violated. Envy signals paths untaken. Fear marks the edge of transformation. Through this dialogue, what was once terrifying becomes intelligible. The cinematic metaphor is clear. The shadow is not a monster waiting to devour you, but a teacher holding a lantern in a dark room. Each question you ask, each moment of attention, illuminates a corner previously hidden. You feel the weight lift slightly. What was chaos becomes clarity. The shadow is not an enemy. It is a reflection of your power, waiting for conscious recognition. You see the parts of yourself you once denied, and suddenly the pieces fit together, forming a map toward authentic action. And finally, awareness becomes mastery. Acceptance is not resignation, it is choice. You realize that the fear that once paralyzed you is now a guidepost, showing where courage must be exercised. The ambition you once feared to embrace is now a tool, not a threat to your morality or peace. You can pursue success without betraying yourself because you understand the hidden motivations that previously sabotaged you. Empowerment flows from this clarity. You step into situations consciously, weighing desire and fear, shadow and light, with full acknowledgement of all forces at play. The storm within no longer dictates your actions. You do. Every decision becomes an act of self-alignment. Fear becomes manageable. Rage becomes direction. Ambition becomes disciplined. You feel a thrill. This is the first taste of true agency. The shadows are no longer obstacles, they are allies. The chaos that once threatened collapse now fuels transformation. And in this moment, you see the truth. Embracing your darkness is the doorway to unshakable strength. You are strongest when you walk with your shadow. Even a happy life cannot be without a measure of darkness, and the word happy would lose its meaning if it were not balanced by sadness. The storm has passed. You feel it first in the quiet moments, breath deepening, muscles loosening, the tension in your chest finally easing. The chaos inside you, the whirlwind of fear, doubt, and unacknowledged shadows, has settled like sediment in a riverbed. Carl Jung said, "Rest and be thankful." You sense it now, the calm after the storm, a gentle clarity that illuminates what was hidden. Light filters softly through the cracks of your mind, warming the parts that were frozen by fear. You watch your own reflection, and for the first time in a long while, recognize the contours of someone whole, someone tempered by fire but not broken. The metaphor is simple yet profound. The river does not resist the rocks in its path. It flows around them, steady, purposeful, unhurried. Your mind flows in the same way now, embracing the lessons of turbulence without being consumed by them. Peace is not an absence of shadow, it is the mastery of awareness, the choice to navigate life with eyes open and heart steady. And with calm comes choice. You notice that every decision no longer carries the weight of unconscious fear. You choose not because it is safe, not because others expect it, but because it aligns with your values, your integrated self, your conscious understanding of desire and limitation. The shadow no longer dictates, but informs. You step forward with intention, taking opportunities that once felt threatening, speaking truths you once suppressed, pursuing ambitions that honor your whole self. Freedom is intoxicating. You realize that every hesitation, every compromise of the past was a rehearsal for this moment of clarity. Now choices are deliberate, grounded in self-knowledge rather than projection or avoidance. You feel empowered, alive, and unshakably present. Each step is conscious, each action a testament to the union of courage and wisdom. And finally, vision emerges. You see yourself standing at the edge of a new day, whole and unafraid. The shadows that once threatened to unravel you now form the wings that lift you. Your eyes are steady, your posture unguarded, your mind illuminated with insight. You move forward as a complete being, no longer fleeing, no longer hiding, fully aware of the power and responsibility you hold. The world may still challenge you, storms may rise again, but you are no longer at their mercy. You carry serenity within, a calm anchored in the knowledge of your own depth. The path of conscious choice stretches before you, bright and untamed, and for the first time it feels entirely yours. You step into it, not hoping, but knowing that peace is born from understanding, courage, and the embrace of the whole self. You walk forward as your own light,